government in this town is excellent and uses your tax dollars efficiently.
Maybe you thought you'd see it coming. The moment Bitcoin is what they fear it is. A way to read it.
What an astounding revolution. Bitcoin represents.
All right, guys, I'm here with Luke Rudkowski.
Welcome back, beautiful and amazing human beings, to Danny Sessions Crypto Show. Sorry,
and Ben Swann, which is this is a great opportunity to actually talk with some independent media. I think we're kind of independent media, but I wouldn't say that we're media. We just kind of talk crap about crypto with people, so it's pretty interesting.
Sounds like media.
Yeah, right. So anyways, I want to talk to you guys today about independent media, of course, and how you got started and where you're planning on going with that. So then you got started in regular TV.
Yep.
So, I mean, how did you get started, and where was it that you actually, like, kind of woke up? What was the point where you woke up and decided you should start changing teams?
Sure. Well, when I actually started out in TV as a news photographer, and their videographers were called photographers, and that was early on in my career. I actually had 3 brothers who were all in news, and so I just needed a job and got into it that way. And then after a couple of years, I got married and had kids and needed to make more money, and said I need to move to the other side of the camera, and so was able to transition, became a reporter. They called him a one-man band at the time, and then a morning anchor, and then a primetime anchor. Just kind of moved up through the ranks, and then started covering the Mexican drug war when I was living in Texas and going over into Juarez, Mexico. And we would go over every single day and we cover what was going on over there. At the time, Juarez was the most dangerous city in the world to be in, and it was crazy. We'd drive over in the morning, and there would be decapitated corpses hanging from the overpasses as you came over in the morning, and it was nuts. But did a lot of reporting there for 2 years, and I loved doing it. I thought it was an incredible story, and that was really the kind of my first moment to really see that media was dishonest, because I was doing all this reporting from the ground there and could see what was happening. I was sending it back. I was working for an NBC station, and we would send it back, and I was trying to get the network to cover what was happening, and they would send someone down every once in a while, and the stories they would tell and the way they would tell the stories just weren't accurate. And so in the beginning, I thought, well, they just don't understand. They're not here enough to understand it. And the more I would send them information, and there just was no interest in it, I was like, maybe there's something else to this.
Right. When you were talking about Mexico, yeah. What was your opinion of kind of the danger level? Because we keep seeing things in the news about it's dangerous to go to Acapulco, it's dangerous to go to Cancun. It's all dangerous. Well, I mean, I just left Mexico and we were assaulted at the border and then robbed in Miami, and I haven't had any problems here. Before that, we spoke with which is the Vicente Fox, ex-president, right. And he was kind of outlining things where the real danger is the cartel, and if you're dealing with the cartel, that's kind of the only way you're really in danger.
So here's where I would push back on that. So when I was covering it, especially in Juarez, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Juarez was a city of 3 million people at the time. It's actually become a much smaller city since then. But let me put it this way: in the beginning, when Calderon, who was president at the time, declared war on the cartels, the initial fight was cartels against cartels, military against cartels, police against cartels, police against police, because police worked for the cartels, the 3 different levels: federales, state police, and then local police. So they were all fighting each other in the beginning. That's what it looked like. And so everybody said, oh, it's a narco war. That's what it started out as. But the problem is that when you have no law and order anymore, then the situation devolves. And what happened in Juarez was it devolved where 30,000 police officers were fired in a single day. Right, these guys had no jobs anymore because the government said, well, they're corrupt. It's because they work for the wrong cartel. And so when you have 30,000 law enforcement officers who no longer have jobs, what do you do? Well, in their case, these guys just turn into a kidnapping ring. And they would go out and they just look for anybody with a Texas license plate, pull them out of their car, take their cell phone, look through their contact list, and say, call up whoever they can find and say, bring me $10,000 or this person's dead. And in some cases, the person would be dead. The other thing that would happen, so that's, you have the narco fight, then you have that level. And then the third level is, and this is what was happening in Juarez too, was, remember in the 1990s, there was something in Juarez that got international attention. It was called the femicides. Do you remember this? There were about 300 girls who were just taken off of buses and off the streets there, and they were murdered. And none of those murders have ever been solved. Well, there was actually in the that first decade of the 2000s, so 2006 to 2010, about 3 times as many girls killed in Juanas as had been in the 90s. And no one talked about this because it wasn't narco-related. It was, if you were a psychopath, if you were a sociopath, if you were a serial killer, this place was a playground, right? Because you have no law enforcement to control anything. They would kill people in Juanas, right? Girls would get killed, cut into pieces. It was horrific. The bodies were taken to morgues. The city morgues, they were put in the city morgue, and then the morgue would say, it's been 30 days and no one's claimed any of these bodies, so they just dump them in a mass grave. And that's where the situation devolved. Now, we're a few years separated from that. That was the early on. I agree with you. I think you can go into Mexico and you can be there. If you're smart about it, you stay in the right areas and you stay away from the areas you shouldn't be in. But there was a misrepresentation that was made in media and by politicians that said, this is a war of, the way they would call it, drug dealers against drug dealers. And if you're not involved in the drug trade, then you're safe. And that wasn't true. There were a lot of innocent people in Mexico who suffered because there was this, as a friend of mine who was a documentary filmmaker in Mexico said it, he says, violence always begets violence. And when you allow society to devolve to this point of just utter chaos, there are a lot of innocent people who are harmed in that.
Awesome. So also, you were a journalist with a television station and everything before, and now that you're independent and you're funded by Dash.
Yes.
So a lot of trolls are going to be attacking you and saying that you're shilling for Dash. Now,
yes.
how has Dash told you how to act and what to say?
Right.
Because
Honestly,
compared to the TV stations that you worked for before.
Well, let me put it this way. So not even compared. Let's just say on their own. Dash has told me nothing about how to behave, what to say, what to cover, nothing. On the other hand, when I was working for CBS in Atlanta, there were a lot of controls over what we were allowed to talk about. Those controls increased over time because the more controversial, and I don't even think the stories are controversial. I think that just the more hornet's nests that you kick, right, the more they start to say, wait, slow down, we don't want to talk about these things. But I will tell you this, anybody who says, hey, Reality Check with Ben Swann, when it was on CBS in Atlanta, and it was being funded by pharmaceutical companies, because they're the ones who buy advertising, lawyers in town, and car dealers in town, why is that a better way to fund media than through crypto? And why is Dash, you're shilling for Dash? Well, guess what? When they're making me stand there and hold a Kroger gift card in pictures when I'm working for CBS in Atlanta and saying, promote Kroger, well, it's the same thing, isn't it?
Right. Yeah, I think we've been on the payroll, I guess you could say, with Dash for over a...
You show for them as well.
We show for them as well because we've worked for them for over a year, almost a year and a half now.
Well, we show for them, quote unquote, not just that, but because we believe in it as a cryptocurrency with a lot of promise.
Absolutely.
Well, we also get a memo each week telling us what to say and what to
the talking points.
As you can tell, our shows are really scripted, and it's because Dash tells us everything to say.
Specifically what to say. Well, and I think that's an important point too. Look, I understand that within the crypto space, there's a lot of competition, right? And so the main people who have come out and been critical of it. Majority, by the way, the vast majority of people have said, hey, thank you, Dash, for doing this. I've had a lot of people on Facebook who have said, I didn't even know what Dash was. Now I do, and I'm not actually interested in it because of the fact that they are, bringing you back. So there's a lot of excitement about that. That's what branding is. So someone asked me one time, you guys know what Vice News is, right? Vice News has a huge deal with Nike. And it's pretty controversial in that Nike actually killed a story that they didn't like, supposedly because it was critical of them in sweatshops. But anyways, they have this huge sponsorship with Nike. And someone asked me, they said, why would Nike need to do brand sponsoring with Vice? Why don't they sponsor with anyone? They're Nike. Well, it's not to sell more shoes. It's to connect their brand with something they hope that people connect with. And so that's what I'm hoping this sponsorship is for Dash, that they're connecting with content that we produce that people connect with and will therefore connect with that brand, which is Dash, Digital Cash.
Definitely. I mean, people who are listening to the news are obviously going to hear about it, so it's a great way.
Yeah,
definitely.
I think the Dash community already connects with you by virtue of the fact that the masternodes voted for you to fund your project. You know what I'm saying? That already demonstrates that there's existing support for what you do and what you've done. So there it is.
So during the the initial phase and everything, I'd spoke with you, and you said something about an activist
Yeah.
ideal. So what does that look like, and what are you planning on doing with
So
that?
that is an eventual. What I want to do is I've had this show for a few years that I've been working on conceptualizing. We actually created a pilot for it. It's called Global Activist. It is shot in a docudrama style, very similar to what Vice does. And the idea behind it is to go to different locations around the world where people are not waiting on government to fix their problems, and they're not waiting on someone to ride in on a white horse. They're actively working to make their situation better, to make humanity better in their own world. We actually shot the pilot here in Mexico. We shot it in Mexico City, and it was back in 2015, I think, is when we shot the pilot. And it was at the time when they were doing all the protests over those 43 students who disappeared, right? And so we explained the story of the 43 students. We actually were here for the huge protest they did. 50,000 people showed up, and so we were there for it and documented, the folks who were there, but also told the bigger story. It's not just so activism's not just protesting. Protest is a part of activism, right? But activism has to be solution oriented, and so we also meet with individuals who are doing work. For instance, we met with a guy who is working to create a DNA database so that people can identify dead family members, because a lot of people can't right now. There is a writer who talked about different ways that people can change the government system here and what that would actually look like. So listen, I'm a fan of it. It's my show. I love it. But to me, it's just a show that means something, right? It's not just more complaining, which is a lot of what people criticize us for doing in news, right? You guys just complain. You don't give out solutions. Well, we want to find people who are solution-based and tell their stories in a way that people can say, hey, yeah, I can get behind that. There's some positive stuff.
You need to get a hold of that guy again, because Dash is actually funding a DNA blockchain thing.
Oh.
They're logging the DNA of marijuana onto the blockchain, which I'm sure could translate to other things.
I'm sure it
they were using Bitcoin, but it was too expensive, so they switched to Dash for the cheap transactions. So.
That's right. One of the advantages of Dash.
So, well, I guess let's switch to Luke, man. Luke, let's hear your story, man. How did you?
Where's my
Pass him the Dash.
I mean, my story is very similar to Ben Swann, except it's the complete opposite.
Exactly. What was the breaking point that got you in to decide to be a journalist?
Well, I grew up in New York City. I saw the failed war on drugs. I saw a lot of my friends affected by it. I saw a lot of the police state. I saw 9/11 when it was happening in New York City. So it affected me tremendously. I mean, just the amount of just dishonesty that came from the mainstream media was insane. They knowingly knew that there was asbestos inside of the World Trade Center towers. Over 75% of that building was filled with asbestos. There's news articles all the way from the 90s, all the way into the late 90s, even in 2000, saying these Twin Towers were white elephants filled with asbestos, right? But when 9/11 happened, the mainstream media was like, yeah, they're safe to breathe. Don't worry about it. Come on down to New York City. Come on down to help. Come on down, volunteers, police officers, firefighters, military men. And I knew a lot of these people, and they were told specifically, even high-level military personnel that I knew were told, don't wear your gas masks. Don't wear your contamination suits. You don't need it. We don't want to freak people out. The CDC knowingly fabricated and lied with the Bush administration to tell everyone, well, yeah, it's really unsafe, but you know what? We're just going to tell them it's safe. 50,000 people were affected by that. Probably me as well. I mean, that plume went through my house, went through my neighborhood. You could write your name like it was snow in my neighborhood because of the dust, because of the ashes. Wow. The papers from the building were all over my community. So I was breathing that in. I was still a teenager at that time, and I saw the effects of that. I saw the ramifications of that. I saw people dying, losing their teeth, coughing up their lungs. I've been to way too many funerals of people that I knew personally, and it got me involved, and I got pissed off. I got pissed off at the police state. I got pissed off at the wars. I got pissed off at our heroes, our police officers, our military men, our firefighters, our service men and women of this country being treated like trash and not even having their contracts that were guaranteeing them health care being denied to them. And the mayor coming out, the New York City mayor, Mayor Bloomberg at the time, saying, well, no, this is not related. This is PTSD. No, we can't really help them. No, we can't really validate their contracts. We can't give them all this health care. We don't have all this money. And I'm like, well, what? What? Hold on here for a second. You're making trillions off of this war. You're making so much money, and there was something wrong. And it got me activated. It got me pissed off. And then I started infiltrating news crews that probably Ben was a part of or associated with or affiliated with. I started learning what they were doing. I started carrying their bags. I started following them, learning what they were doing. I talked to one of them and I was like, "Where'd you get your press credential?" And he was like, "Well, my company printed it out." I'm like, Your company printed it out?" I'm like, don't you need to go through an official source or official government entity or school and have a documentation to have your press credential? He's like, "No, my company just printed it out." So you just say, I was like, screw this bull crap. I'm printing my own, got my own press credential, got into events, and then the people that Ben Swann was working with were really pissed off at me because I would go into press conferences, blow up press conferences with hard questions. Right. Politicians would run away, skimmer, security would be called, police would be called. I'd probably ended up arrested or harassed or intimidated or whatever. The press conference would be over. Everyone would be mad at me. But the people online saw that. They saw that passion. They saw that anger. They saw that injustice. And they saw politicians finally face it eye to eye. And when they saw that, they're like, whoa. And it inspired people to create their own chapters of We Are Change. And it grew to 260 chapters all over the world with advocacy work, with activism, with just doing the right thing, being in the streets, talking to people. And we blew up on the internet. It was huge. Now, I think we should also go into this because there's a huge problem. And I got to give it up. I got to give it up to Ben with the Dash proposal and everything he's doing. Brilliant. I'm going to follow his footsteps 100% way because there's no other way. There's so much censorship. There's so much blocking out of alternative content that goes against the status quo. You don't regurgitate lines like the horse stream media does and just puke up whatever the establishment wants to tell you. Bam, you're gone. You're censored. You're blacklisted. People are unsubscribed for your channels. They don't get notifications. Just a couple days ago, CNN put a fake copyright strike on my channel. Took away my ability to live stream. My whole news brand is being on the ground, live, during major protests, during major riots, during major events. I don't have that ability. I may not have that ability for 9 months because of a false claim CNN made against me. So, I don't know if it's, a big sinister plan. I don't kind of envision Anderson Cooper sitting there like, yes, we got him. Because we did piss him off a number of times. I pissed him off like 3 times. I pissed off the entire staff of CNN 3 times. It's probably an algorithm problem. But of course, I don't see CNN or YouTube going out of their way to help us out anytime soon since they've been kicking us in the balls really significantly. And I know, Ben, probably you deal with the same stuff.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And I think one of the things that happens is, and I agree with you, I don't think they necessarily target you, but once you get snagged, they have no incentive to help you to get unsnagged. Right?
It's their AI.
Like, keep them there as long as you possibly can.
Not only that, it's their artificial intelligence systems. They're like, oh, they're talking about this topic and this topic and this topic. They're not working with the pre-approved list. They have a list. Young Turks, CNN, MSNBC, Fox News. Yeah, they could talk about all these issues. But you bring up anything else, or you even talk about them, even similarly, they're like, bam, cut off.
Yeah. So, well, it was interesting when we were doing Reality Check before we were shut down for a year. The biggest places we saw censorship on YouTube and Facebook was when we talked about the war in Syria. Every time I did a piece on Syria, it would get flagged as being inappropriate. It would get flagged as being too violent. And I was like, violent? We're not showing anything. We're just talking about what's going on in the war. But it would get flagged by this stuff, and it would get shut down or removed, or we get a strike against our channel. So I agree with you. I think it's an algorithm thing where it's set up to say these are the issues that you're not allowed to talk about. Stay away from them.
I mean, I had personal contact with like the top staff of YouTube. I knew a lot of people high level up in YouTube. I went to VidCon. I hang out. I made friends with them. I drank with them. I knew the person who was in charge of monetization, top person.
Yeah.
So, Luke, I know as you got recognized as being the guy who's going to come in and just tear stuff up, you came up with the idea for Change Media. Like, go into that. I mean, what's the idea behind
I can't do this
Media?
all the time. I'm getting old. I got torn ligaments. I got herniated discs. I got constant back spasms. I got pinched nerves. I got a lot of trauma, a lot of contusions in my head from all the crazy work that I've been doing throughout the years, whether it's police officers beating the crap out of me or Antifa attacking me or just being at these major events. And the true way of really wanting to kind of serve your purpose is to spread the knowledge that you learned and giving the ability to other people to establish themselves and empower themselves in this worldwide media market that we're all living in right now that's changing so dramatically. This is a whole new kind of way of life that no one is teaching it. No universities are really teaching you how to thrive and survive in this media landscape anymore. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to teach my, everything, all my travel hacks, all my life hacks, all my, little tips and tricks of the trade, which made me who I am. And gave me as many
hacks and everything.
Yeah. We have fake press credentials on our like thing where you can just Photoshop them, put your name on it, put your photo on it, bam, you got a press credential.
I go to conferences all over, and I just hand them a business card that says FM radio on it, and I get in every time.
It's that easy.
Which anyone can make a business card. It's that easy. Yeah.
Well, but the reality is there is no press credential. I mean, it's a myth. It's the man behind the curtain, right? There isn't that. And Luke's absolutely right. I remember the first time I ever interviewed the first time I was ever allowed in a presidential motorcade was George W. Bush. First sitting president was Obama. But when I went to the Bush motorcade, I didn't have a press credential. And some guy at our station went and said, I need a picture of you. And they took a picture and they printed it on a computer and gave it to me. And the Secret Service is like, okay. If you can just prove that you work for, but this is where it gets tricky, is that it is unspoken, but there is legitimate media and there's illegitimate media, right? And so if you work for an established broadcaster of some kind who has an FCC license, now you're part of established media, and therefore everything you do counts. But if you don't have that, then they see you as illegitimate.
Well, speaking of which, there's been talk in recent years by politicians of literally licensing journalists. And do you all think that that's a real possibility coming down the road, that they would actually do that?
So I don't think it is right now. I think there's too much pushback on that. I think they tested the waters on it. I think it was Dianne Feinstein who pushed forward and really was focused on it. But I don't think it will get there because I think there's too many people who would push back on it.
Plus, it's impossible. And one of her ways of determining if you're a journalist or not is if you actually get paid to do your work, to do your job. And we do, but I bet they're going to be like, well, subsection A, B, C of 1258543 says this and that. So, again, like we see what they're presenting, but it's usually a lot bigger bureaucratic system behind the scenes that's going to figure out some kind of little ways to screw us eventually. And it's impossible to register all of us. It's not going to happen.
Well, and the other thing is too. So what are you going to do? You're going to if the government actually created this thing and said you're a licensed journalist, what does that mean? It means that you can no longer do independent reporting? No, of course you can still do that, and you can still have it out there. I think what would happen is, look, right now the last Gallup poll that I've seen shows that only 9% of Americans trust mainstream media. That means 91% say I don't trust them. So how is giving those those journalists that you don't trust a license going to change anyone's view of them? It's not.
Right.
To actually delegitimizing them even more, saying they are now government approved.
That's a good point.
Luca,
Maybe they should, so people will stay away.
Exactly.
Another question for Luke. So you have changed media, and now you're wanting to expand and kind of make a more legitimate news agency, and you're wanting to do this with Dash. So what would that proposal look like, and what do you have in it?
I mean, I'm in talks with a lot of journalists out there who can't survive. A lot of people who work for major organizations that I used to have respect for that were fired because they wanted to be unbiased. They wanted to tell the truth. And we're not even talking about mainstream media organizations. We're talking about independent organizations that claim that they're independent. But obviously now they lean kind of either very pro-Trump or very anti-Trump. So I know a lot of these individuals. I know a lot of these people that were my personal friends. I know a lot of war correspondents.
InfoWars and stuff like that.
Yes. Yeah. That's one of them. And I know a lot of people who were booted out, and I'm like, wait, man, like I respect your opinion, I respect your work, and then I'm like, it's a shame that you can't do anything, and I want to be a service to these people. I want to help them. I want to give people the opportunity to follow their dream, tell the truth, and actually live their true potential in a way that actually helps the world. I'm in touch with a lot of war correspondents and a lot of people who go out to places like Syria, like Iraq. One of the journalists, she's one of the most hardcore women I have ever met in my life. She was kidnapped by ISIS. She was kidnapped by the Turkish government. And she's still willing to go out there because she has a drive and a push to be on the ground, to tell people what's going on. And the stories she told me that she couldn't tell were mind-blowing of what exactly is happening. And this is stuff I can't say because she was contracted by mainstream media to go out there. She saw it. She pitched them. They said, no, we can't report on this. So, like, these individuals, I want to give them that responsibility. Ben, I like your idea as well, going out there. I mean, that's pretty much what I've been doing, but now if we could legitimize it and actually do it more, the more we do it together, the better. Yeah. Going out there, real change makers, and then being able to even do like reward system where we could give people $10,000 worth of Dash every month if they're doing something significant, bringing out a professional film crew, filming their game-changing idea, and then being like, here, Here it is. Here's the change that you want to see in this world. Now they have the finances to do whatever the hell they want. And they're going to keep doing it on another better level without any resistance, without anyone stopping them, because there's unlimited potential in this world that Dash is in.
Awesome. Well, do you want to be a little bit more specific about what your proposal would be? What's your idea for your proposal?
My idea is to expand the news team, hire a whole bunch of journalists all over the place, and look for those change makers. Once we find those change makers, videotape them, make a whole video about them, what they're doing, investigate them, make sure that they're actually legitimate, make sure that there's actually some accountability, be able to reward them Dash, have an accounting system so everything could be backlogged and tracked, make sure the money goes into the right places. And to do this for 2 years in a way where after those 2 years, we could be a self-sustaining news business outside of that and continue the kind of reward process where we're able to help people once a month wherever they are in the world. And again, I've been doing this already, life hacking, travel hacking, using freaking flyer miles. But if we could do this officially, the potential of this is just unlimited, because instead of sleeping on couches, we could actually be well prepared, have everything well done, and that would be a dream of mine.
What about like integrating change media and having
scholarships?
scholarships?
Change Media University free. It's already free for high school students. As soon as that would, if the Dash proposal comes through, Change Media University is free for everybody. Let's diversify this thing. Let's get it out there. Let's make Dash a great example of the kind of charity, of the kind of giving, of the kind of example of here's some really good stuff. Everyone have at it.
Right. And the same question I asked Ben earlier, when they start attacking you for being a Dash shill, what's your answer to that?
I'd rather be a decentralized shill than one that depends on YouTube advertisement or one that depends on commercials. I think Dash is an extremely great idea. I love cryptocurrencies. It's been amazing what the community has brought, and just the amount of help that has been spread with the work that you're doing, with the work that Ben is going to be doing now, with the work that so many other people around the world are doing, that has really changed things significantly for the better. So if I ever would have a sponsor, which I hate sponsors, I don't do sponsors. If I ever would have a commercial, I hate commercials, I don't do commercials. If I ever would have any source of income, I would rather it be from a decentralized platform that believes in me and gives it to me with no expectations of me telling me what to do. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing regardless, whether Dash is there or not. If there is there, the potential is going to be increased, and we're going to help each other out.
And by the way, we say Dash, and that of course includes the Dash developer team, but Dash is a whole community. Right. The developers, the master nodes, all the users. So it's
an organization.
It's an organization. So like you said, it's a very decentralized thing. So it's not such a shill thing that people seem to perceive it as.
Well, I'll give you a really good example. Here at this conference, the Dash table, everybody volunteered. Everybody just, hey, I want to be part of that. No one's getting paid. Yeah. We're all just, we put in a proposal for the spot at the conference, but everybody else showed up on their own accord, and no one is paid to do this. We all just wanted to do it.
Yeah, I mean, when a lot of people, when they first started out, we weren't getting any money at all. A lot of the organizations were all volunteer. A lot of the stuff was all charity.
We were on air for 2.5 years before we ever even got a sponsor. I mean, other than our very first sponsor was Bitmain, and we had some free mining equipment. That was when we first kicked off, and after that, it was sponsor free for.
And we tried to show for so many people. No, I was kidding.
Yeah, nobody wanted anything to do with it.
Nobody wanted you to show for them.
No.
One quick question, Luke. You talk about paying, rewarding journalists out there if you were to get the proposal through. Do you think that would involve contests, which have been done successfully by other sort of alternative media groups, or do you want to elaborate more on?
Yes, of course. I mean, obviously, I already have some organizations that are doing really incredible work that would be helped out in the first month, but diversifying the platform with particular contests with the best confrontation of a politician, or the best investigative reporting piece this month, or the best on-the-ground reporting piece this month. Will definitely be integrated. But I think there's also a lot of people out there. There's one organization that I'm looking into right now that's run by an ex-CIA guy, who quit the CIA because he's sick of how they were not going after pedophiles. He started his own organization that's going predominantly after pedophiles, and he's doing incredible work saving children from all around the world from slavery and sexual abuse. So it's people like that, and I'm like, holy cow, no one knows about this person. It's an incredible person. I want to help this man out. And then kind of mixing it up. So like, I hate, stringent things, but I definitely think that's one idea that we're going to integrate throughout the process.
Awesome.
Yeah, we need to know more about that because we've been in contact with this other guy, the ArcLight Foundation. We don't even really know how legitimate it is, but it's a great idea. They're building underground bunkers, and they're donating some of these as well to house some of the people that are human trafficked. Victims here in the U.S.
See, a big part of it is accountability, because a lot of people say they're doing something good, but a lot of times you need to investigate. You need to look at the books. You need to make sure, hey, let's make sure that we're not financing something that's going to hurt some people. So it's going to be a huge process, and that's a lot of work, and that's a lot of resources, and that's not easy work. Make sure someone's legit or not. That's difficult, and if we could have the resources to do that, I mean, I'm basically a one-man band team. Like, you look at me, I look like Inspector Gadget with my camera crew on my back. That's hurting my back, giving me knots all the time with every single aspect. I do all the editing, I do all the post-production, I do a lot of the promotion. I do basically everything. If you could have some help, I know like the work would be so much more hard-hitting, so much more impactful.
It's sad that that's such a topic that you get attacked for. I mean, because what you did with Pizzagate, and they came after you for that. So be careful.
Trust me, I've been through the rodeo. I've been through the whole 9 yards.
You've been through the ringer plenty of times.
Yeah, I've been through everything.
Well, and you make a good point that, there's so much volunteer enthusiasm out there, but I don't care how much enthusiasm you have to volunteer and how actively you pursue it. You're going to need money to some extent at some point, especially to do hard-hitting investigation like you're talking about. So I think your idea to put forth a proposal, to the Dash community is a great one. When do you think you might actually do that?
Well, we're writing it up right now.
Oh, awesome.
So,
okay.
We're in the process right now of getting it vetted, getting it edited. We already have one. We have a rough draft, so we're in the process. We're going to, probably send it in a few days.
That's awesome. Great.
Are you going to send it to the forum first?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yeah, the forum first, and open communications, get some feedback from people, and I'm trying to stay as humble as I can here, because it's like, holy cow, this is a lot of responsibility. This is a lot of resources that have to be utilized in a correct way. So it's like, oh cow, do I really want to do this?
I would love to see you two guys actually collaborate on the Change Media idea, because that's a great.
Yeah,
that's a great
we could
thing,
even work something out where you could give a course on there, and we could diversify it, give it out to everyone for free, and do some networks, and I could help you if you're doing some crazy on-the-ground reporting, which, I can teach you how to not get, a brick in the head. It's happened to me a couple times.
Yeah. What's the most inexpensive helmet you can get for that?
Right, exactly. Like, just wear these bicycle helmets.
It's called ducking and diving.
All right.
Well, we definitely give you our support, and if you want to come back on the show as the voting happens to promote it again,
Of
definitely.
course, it means a lot. Thank you guys so much, and I can't say enough for this opportunity. And congratulations to Ben.
And good luck to you, man.
Yeah, I know the potential's there, and we're just going to do really incredible work in the future.
I just want to say real quick, when we did our proposal, there was a number of people who looked at it and said, that were warning other master nodes, if you do this, everybody else is going to come asking for this kind of stuff too, and we're going to get slammed with proposals. And I was like, I hope so.
Yeah,
right?
That's not a
because
bad thing.
I mean, obviously you get to pick and choose among what you like, but the bottom line is, when I was doing it, the thought was, I know there's some people who were going to be critical that we were going to do this, and we were going to go out there and ask for all this, and who's this guy think he is? But I think that hopefully we've done is we've exposed this idea that, hey, by the way, especially for media folks, you got to understand that. I know people will say, well, why don't you just get an iPhone and you record yourself, and that's just as good. It's not.
No,
I'm sorry, it's not. And I've done this as a professional broadcaster for 20 years, right? And I was a professional broadcaster, and then I went independent, and I went back into the mainstream, and now I'm independent again. And I can tell you that through those iterations, that when you are creating content that is on the level of what the networks are doing in professional content, that people, even though they say they don't believe the mainstream media, they say, I don't trust them. They will not trust you if you don't look like them. And if you do, but you have content that speaks to truth, they'll share that content and they'll spread it around, because here's what they can do. They can go to their cousin and their father and their brother and people who they're trying to expose to these ideas and say, here's something you should watch. And if that person who is a mainstream viewer clicks on a link or watches something and it looks like somebody with an iPhone, they're done. There's a rule that says when a news manager or a news director is looking for talent, they'll put in your reel, because you'll create a reel as a reporter, right, to get a job. They'll put in a reel, and within 2 seconds of watching it, they've determined whether they like you or not. And I believe that's true. I mean, I've known a lot of news directors, and I've seen how they do it. But I think that's also true of the public. I think they'll look at something, and within 2 seconds of looking at it, they'll decide whether this is, in their mind, possibly legitimate or it's utterly illegitimate.
I agree with you, and I disagree with you. When we're talking about older demographics, 100%.
Yep.
I was the crazy guy running around with the iPhone. We've been able to build a huge audience with
Oh, yeah.
snag tag. But I agree with you, because I know I could be so much better if I had, the sound guy, instead of me finagling things, messing up the sound. I know if I had a researcher that helped me back up things and ask hard-hitting questions even more than I originally did, it would be so much better.
Yeah.
But I do believe there's a newer kind of generation that is sick of the mainstream media, that is sick of
I
the
agree. I agree.
But I love the diversified tactics, because we need you, right?
Right.
But we also need the ragtag.
Oh, yeah.
We need both of those to attract those different crowds. And I think by going, in that trench with those different special forces that we're all in together,
Right on.
I think we're going to be a lot more effective in actually making a better impact in the world and working more cohesively with each other.
Yeah. Right on.
Even independent media, though, will quote mainstream media all the time when it fits their narrative.
Of course.
So,
Or when there's lots of within mainstream media there's a lot of contradiction, right? And so that's a big tactic for alternative, or I like to call them new media. What new media will have to do is you point out the contradiction. Yeah, you guys reported this, but it's buried, right? Or facts. Listen, even a broken clock is right twice a day. There are facts that will be buried in these stories that you say, well, this fact is here, but the totality of your narrative is wrong, right? Because you took those facts and you steered them this way, and it actually goes this way.
Right, exactly. You know what I mean? And yeah, just there are things in the mainstream media that can prove the points that the alt-stream media is trying to make. Right. And that's the thing, is like it's kind of like what you were just saying about production value and how people equate it, or at least certain generations of people equate it with legitimacy. And if that production value is not there, they just don't take it seriously. It's the same with when the alternative media uses some of the mainstream media's like output. It's in order to get legitimacy for the point they're trying to make with certain people who would otherwise not give it legitimacy if it didn't originally source from the mainstream media.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Right. No, absolutely. And I think that, again, so we have a very particular kind of audience that we're trying to hit, because we're trying to be the evangelists, right? We're the ones who we're trying to talk you into taking the step across that bridge from your mainstream world into this other world. And so I guess we're the gateway drug, right? Trying to bring people across that. And so what I have found, is that the most successful work that I do takes mainstream sources and then tears them apart, dissects them, says, here are these facts, but this is where they're wrong, and this is where those facts actually lead you. Facts lead you someplace, and so, but you have to actually follow it. And the problem is what will happen is with mainstream is that they'll take facts and they'll allow it to be twisted into the wrong conclusion that fits their narrative.
That's a good point. Yeah. Well said.
Thanks.
Awesome, man. I think we covered about everything. So, you guys got any final thoughts or?
What's my script again?
Dash. Say it. You have to say dash 5 more times.
Here, look at this.
There's
pen.
a quota. So I just want to, Luke, wish you luck, man, as you put together your proposal, and excited about seeing it, what it looks like. I want to thank you guys too for being on. I just want to also say, for all the Dash folks who were listening to this, because I know a lot of them listen to this show, we're 2 weeks into launching our project now. We've had 4 episodes hit, and we're getting into the next set of them. And I hope I conveyed this from the stage yesterday. I am so grateful, right, to Dash, because this is much bigger. This moment is much bigger than Ben Swann, and it's much bigger than even Dash, right? It is a moment where we're demonstrating together, right, between Dash and Reality Check. We are together demonstrating to the crypto world that there is a much bigger ability, a much bigger power to be a force of change than just in the financial realm. And I think some folks out there in the crypto world already get that. I'm not sure all of them do. I know the folks in the media world did not get that, right? And I think they're going to step back and say, oh my gosh, I can't believe these guys are being funded this way. And it's awesome. It's an exciting moment. I agree with
it'll be a great day when
Luke said.
When people start saying, "Oh man, those guys are backed by big crypto."
But to me, it's like the ultimate like fu to the establishment. Like, what? You're gonna demonetize me? You're gonna censor me? You're gonna push me away? You're gonna block me? You're gonna try to arrest me when I'm doing my reporting? You know what? We're gonna come back bigger, better, and stronger now, and you won't be able to stop us. You won't be able to control us because we're here right now, and we're sponsored by something that is just as good of an idea as we're pushing.
Yeah, I know, and there's really opportunities for everybody in crypto. I mean, I'm the least technical person that I know of. I mean, Chris has to help me. He has to help me open my email sometimes, but I took, roofing and construction, and I'm able to apply that to what we're doing with Dash, and we're building houses. It's cool. I mean,
well, and everyone,
just
a lot of people in this community, really everyone has their individual unique talents so they can contribute to making the world a better place and using things like the Dash governance system to assist them in doing so.
So I mean, if you just think that there's no way for you to get into cryptocurrency, just be imaginative and come up with a plan where you can actually apply it.
If Danny can do it, anyone can do it.
I just want to go to YouTube headquarters, put a huge Dash sign and a big middle finger. Like, yeah, you son of a gun. What are you going to do now?
We could have the middle finger and the A right there.
Google, let's go. Let's make it happen.
All right. Well, then let's just end it.
Thanks, guys.